Hello, Vanessa, and welcome to the Jessica Pinelli podcast. Another fellow Aussie. I'm super excited. I was just looking at my list of podcast interviews from the past 2 weeks, and you are my first Aussie out of 13 interviews.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. I love that.
I
The funny
know.
the funniest thing is I'm actually originally from the UK as well.
Yeah. I heard your voice as you came, your accent, and I was like, I feel there's a little bit of a UK twang in there. So maybe not full Aussie.
Oh, but that's okay. I reckon I can claim it because I've been here 14 years. So we're claiming the Oz title.
I'm actually, in saying that, I'm going to start with a question that's probably something you weren't expecting, a little bit different. Coming into Australia, you have been here for a good amount of chunk of time. Now, with what you do, coming online, creating a business, how have you found that your experience of starting a business in Australia, especially we are quite well known for having tall poppy syndrome, not wanting to celebrate anyone that does better than us in whatever perspective is a bad person or it shouldn't happen for them. So, what is
Mm.
your experience with starting this business? Where were you and how did you get to where you currently are?
Yeah, so originally I was in the corporate world. So from 18, I left school, went to college, and yeah, started my corporate career in legal. And I was there for about 15 years before I pivoted and decided to leave that role, having gone through my own identity issues and disconnection from myself and losing who I was, losing my purpose, losing my passion for life. And there was a lot of things that have been going on in my world, probably for about 10 years. And I was in my corporate career also for a period of 10 years at the same company. But for the last 4 years of that, I really lost. That was when I started to lose who I was and started to lose my passion for the role. And there was a lot of things coming up for me around just feeling undervalued, unappreciated. And so I really started to choose a really big leap of faith to start working on myself and my mindset. And it was a huge thing for me because for me, I hadn't ever been exposed to the personal development world or the coaching industry. I didn't really know too much about it, except that a friend had recommended a coach to me to work with and thought it'd be really powerful for me. And so I did a 3-month mentorship with her and we just worked on my mindset, limiting beliefs, reprogramming, all of those really powerful things that really allowed me to really connect back to who I was. And during those 3 months, I actually ended my corporate career, which was a huge thing for me after staying for 10 years. I really didn't want to be there. And I just was so scared and fearful to take that leap. So after that, it sort of fell into this place where I really became obsessed with the world of personal development and obsessed with the coaching industry. And particularly for me, what had been interesting was the coach that I was working with actually identified to me a few things around how I'd actually be a really powerful coach and just some qualities that she'd seen in me. And I said to her, it's actually quite funny because during my lifetime, I'd had a lot of people say that to me, say to me, oh, you'd make a really good coach. You're a great listener. You give good advice. And I'd completely shut down that idea because I didn't have the confidence. I was like, no, I couldn't do that. I can never be a coach. I can never do any of those things. And it was just really interesting to see after working with her so closely that she'd found, those qualities in me. And so, yeah, that's really where my journey began. And after really working on myself, which, as you know, is an ever evolving journey, it's still not done. I'm still doing it even after 2 years. But the beautiful part in that is that I really wanted to empower other women to really find themselves again after really going through my own identity crisis and identity loss, and really wanted to empower women to find their purpose again, find their passion for life, and create what it is that they're truly here to create within the world. So that's the background of where I've come in. And I guess for me, creating a business online, I think for any business, it can be very challenging, as I'm sure you know as well. And I think it's it's really basically about mindset. And I've had to anchor into a lot of, really believing in myself and really creating the own evidence for yourself, even if you're not seeing results, not getting that support from other people. And as you mentioned, the tall poppy syndrome and all of those things are really real. And it can be very difficult, obviously, when you feel like you're competing, even though it's not that, but it's really allowing yourself to be authentic and bring your authenticity online, which can sometimes be hard because things come up of fear of being judged, fear of being, cancelled, all of these things. So it's definitely been challenging for me, but I would say that it's allowed for me to create a really incredible community And that's the one thing that I really love about the online space. And I think even about, our connection that's only been very short recently, but you think, it's beautiful because you're in different places, but you have this beautiful connection. And that's the part that I love the most, because I found it really amazing to meet some incredible people that I wouldn't necessarily have met in my life in person.
That's one thing I keep saying with these podcast interviews. It's incredible the connections that I am making with people all over the world. And yeah, who I wouldn't have the opportunity to necessarily connect with in person. So I love that. I want to go back to what you said. 10
Mm.
years of knowing that something wasn't serving you. Where was the switch? Because I resonate wholeheartedly. I think I was basically a decade going in the same cycles, thinking, I am meant for a better life. I'm meant for a bigger life and things to feel better than what they currently are. But there was nothing quite in me until towards the end that was switching me over. What was the switch for you? Where did you go? This is it. I've had enough of this shit. Now's the time to change.
Yeah. I think it was for me that I in that process as well, I should also say I became a mum. So I had two children. So again, that really also didn't help with me losing myself, because obviously when you become a mum, your whole identity shifts anyway. And then it was other people now need me, and I'm losing parts of myself in the way that I could just go out and do things for myself freely, and you can't do that anymore. So there was a lot of restrictions around that too. But it kind of happened in the COVID phase. And I was in Melbourne at the time. I was living in Melbourne for 10 years. COVID in Melbourne was just, it was complete lockdown. Everyone was isolated, and I was working from home for those two years. So I think for me, it was a lot around, I hadn't had connection with people. And my big thing for me, my big value is community and connection. That's one of my top values. And I really struggled with that. And also my marriage went through a really difficult and tough period. And I think that was the pivotal part for me in that I really wanted to shift and change. And I'd had a lot of things reflected to me, how we're all a mirror for things. And there was a lot coming up for me around my marriage, particularly in that. And I think COVID, my marriage, all of these things kind of just felt like they was just all falling away around me. And that really got to me to be like, I think I really now need to be the one to take action, because it's easy to, when you don't have the knowledge and you haven't worked on your mindset, to really blame everyone else. And I remember I was in that phase, I'd be 100% honest. I used to blame others around me. I didn't want to take responsibility for my own emotions, the way that I was feeling, the way that I was thinking. And over time, that really got to me. And then when my marriage started to really suffer in that way, I really had to look at it of like, well, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me about me? And it really got to that place where it's like, I'm the only one that can change who I am. It has to come from me first. And that was ultimately where my decision came in.
You have a reel, a post. I just want to kind of go towards that, and it
Mm.
leads into this, but basically the first part of it that I want you to kind of explain where this is coming from, and I see this is fed into all of the work that you share and everything you do, is choosing you gets to be the new normal. What does
Mm.
that mean? Why have you coined that as a very strong theme in all of the work that you do?
Yeah, it's actually making me emotional when you're saying that, because I think for so long I really just did not prioritize myself at all. And I, even as I said, becoming a mum as well, obviously that does change a lot of things, but I was always somebody that I knew deep down I was struggling, but I put up this facade to pretend that I was okay. And I didn't want to ask for help. And I didn't want to seem like I didn't have it under control. So I juggled all the hats and I tried to hold it all together. But secretly, I was suffering inside. And that was partly because I wasn't choosing myself in that moment. I was so disconnected from who I was because I was continuously in my masculine energy. And I just was turned off by life. Obviously that, fed into my relationship, which is why that was struggling. And I really just wanted to preface the importance of actually choosing you. And for 10 years, I completely neglected myself and my own feelings, my own thoughts. And I actually got into this mindset of where, okay, well, I guess it just has to be this way. I guess life is like this. And I see this with so many people. And this is why I really want to change the trajectory of this, because we can fall into that trap through society's conditioning, through what we're exposed to every day, to believe that we just have to settle. And that's what I'd done. I'd settled on myself, and I'd settled for less than. And was not showing up for myself at all or prioritizing myself in any way.
What are some key things that women, men, anyone who's listening can start to prioritize that signifies them choosing themselves, or things that you did that was like, okay, this is what it looks like for me to choose me for once?
Mm. Yeah, I think first and foremost, it was just about really actually, it sounds so simple, but for me, it was a lot about slowing down. And what I mean by that is just not trying to overdo it in trying to fill your life with so much, because we can feel like we need to get all these things done.
Mm.
And we have this whole list of priorities. And that in itself is already setting us up for kind of like not winning at life, because we're just never going to get everything done. So for me, it was really prioritizing myself and what is important to me right now, really bringing my mindset into that. What's important for me today? What do I need to focus on that's actually going to make me feel good, actually going to make me feel achieved, make me feel empowered, and started to choose a different way. And then in that too, it used to be, I used to go on walks. I love walking. For me, that's a really powerful thing of connecting back into myself, connecting with nature. So slowly, it sounds simple, but these were things that I didn't do. And I know that people listening will feel the same, because I've had conversations with women like, you seem simple, just go for a walk. Doesn't everyone do that? Well, actually, no, not when you feel like you actually can't, because you've got so much going on. So I prioritized, my, working out, walking. I joined a mum's club that was a PT from home. I started to work out a couple of days a week. I just started to go for coffees by myself. Like, I actually decided to choose a lot of things for myself in that too, because that really allowed for me to just feel safe when I was with myself and my own self and my thoughts and where I really wanted to be. And that really opened up a lot for me. So it was simple things like, just working out, going on walks, making, a list of what is important, what actually needs to be done right now, and removing everything that doesn't, first and foremost. And then from that place, I guess for me, it kind of transpired into changing my environment, which was a really big thing for me. So who I surrounded myself with, my friends, like I started, as I said, the personal development industry was a huge thing for me. I started to listen to trainings, educational podcasts, things where I was fueling my brain with new things. So I was learning and growing. So they were really huge things for me.
I have a lot of mum clients, and I have a lot of mums that are in my community. And I absolutely love that you bought into this, that you're a mum and that you also went through a kind of this identity crisis, or figuring out, who am I as a mum? Who am I as a woman? Who am I as a partner? For all the mums listening, where did you start with that? Because I know, in working closely with, I think majority of my client base are actually mums as well. And I think one of the biggest things that I have seen time and time again, I've seen with my best friends who are also mums, is feeling like they have to sacrifice themselves as a woman, even as a partner, as a friend. And the only identity that they can possibly have is the mum identity. What are some things from your personal experience and some things you've shared with your own clients for all the mothers listening, or mothers to be? Where do we start with knowing that we are separate from being a mum? You don't have to always have that identity.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I feel like it's something that's really hard to sometimes connect with, even if you can know that there's things that you are separate from. When you're a mum, it's really hard to still actually remove that identity piece and just take time for yourself, because you have the guilt that comes in. And then there's all these other things that happen. And I think for me, it was really just trying to look at myself. And the first thing I always used to think about is, what actually lights me up? Like, what used to light me up, what used to get me excited, what were the things that I used to love doing before I was a mum? And then I looked at, how could I actually bring that back into my world so that I could feel more of me? And I really had to come into this belief piece and really anchor in that actually giving back to me and being who I truly am is how I get to give back to others. And that really allowed for me to really just release some of that mum guilt that would come up when I would start to choose myself, and being like, well, I'm doing this for my daughters, for my family, for my husband, to be the best version of me, and they're going to get that best version of me. So I really looked at, it was a really powerful piece around what lights me up, what makes me come alive, and what were these things that I enjoyed doing before I became a mum, and really beginning to prioritize that. And that even looked at, like, where I was working out initially was doing things online. So I would work out in my living room around my babies, but where I felt like I'm moving my body, I felt really good for it. But at the same time, I'm still here for my babies. I didn't have to leave them. So also looking at things that felt like they were okay to do. Like, obviously, I don't want to do things that are going to take you out of feeling like that's too much for you to do right now. So really coming into a place, okay, what do I enjoy? What makes my personality shine? What do I love? But also, how can I do this that's going to fit in around my babies, around my children? And that's going to give that beautiful balance between motherhood and also choosing yourself.
And what has the effect been for you being able to do all of those things?
It's been like, it has been transformational from where I was previously to where I am now. It's just been, it's really hard to even just think back to how I was. Like, I can still feel it visually. It's hard to see, but I just think, wow, like I was this woman that really was a shell of herself. And now I completely come back into who I was, but also have actually grown so much in that too, and really probably actually deepened my connection to who I am from where I was previously, because I've really come to learn about myself more. And I think that's been the beautiful part of that. I've been learning who am I, like, so much more. I'm really connecting with my body, connecting to who I am, which I'd never done previously. And I think that's been the really powerful change in all of this process, is really actually deepening my knowledge around who am I, and like connecting back into myself, and then seeing that be my magic come alive from that place.
That's the aim of the game, isn't it? To really understand who you are at your core. What are your values? What does it feel like to be by yourself? What does it feel like to be safe? And I love that. I like to get very tangible and really specific here on the podcast to give some actionable things. So, if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm inspired. I'm ready to change my identity. I'm ready to step into someone different. I've been feeling the pull. Where should they start? What's the first kind of footstep they need to take to start to uncover who they truly are and uncover their gifts that they want to share with the world?
Mm. Yeah, I think one of the main things that I take my clients through first is really just, we go deep into the identity work. And that really goes back into looking back at your childhood, looking back at, your beliefs from childhood, what you were told, what were you exposed to? Because we're often told things like, we can't be too much. We need to be quiet. We need to sit still. We can't be fully expressed. And obviously those things that we get told, are embedded in us and form part of our identity coming into our adulthood. And so a really powerful thing that I do is going back to the root cause of, where did this begin? Where did we get told that we couldn't be who it is that we are? And uncovering those to be able to love them again, and actually accept them, and then integrate them into being who it is that we actually truly are. Because it's a real thing that we can feel like sometimes we know who we are because of our current identity, how we show up as. But of course, like, that's just our social mask. It's just our ego. So it's really going deep into the shadow parts of ourselves and really connecting back to who it is that we are. And I'm also doing this through just really connecting back into your body. Again, like, it sounds simple, but it's really powerful, because our body keeps the score. Our body holds all our wisdom, and it tells us so much about ourselves. And so it's really powerful for prioritizing self-connection in the place of coming back into ourselves. What is our body telling us? And opening up space within our worlds to connect with our intuition, with our higher self, which is ultimately going to guide us to our path of alignment and where it is that we should truly be. So I do a lot of work around conscious identity work in the aspect of connecting with our higher self, connecting with our intuition, but also through the body, through pleasure, through deep self-connection, and then through the shadow, the childhood, the limiting belief work, rewriting that, reframing those parts of ourselves, finding those parts that we've rejected and bringing those back and accepting them again and loving them.
Why do you think we struggle to step into who we truly want to be? Why do we allow the fear of judgment or success overpower what we truly want?
For me, I wholeheartedly believe it's to be socially accepted. And that's just my personal opinion on it. I mean, there's many reasons why. There's absolutely so many reasons why, but the biggest one for me, and through the clients that I work with, through my own journey as well, through knowing this, and the clients that I work with, it's about feeling loved and accepted. And if we feel like we need to be different to who we currently are, that poses a threat to us. And so we're going to feel like, oh, we're going to get love and acceptance here. Are we going to be liked? And if we say the wrong thing, we might not be liked. So we'll just conform and be the good girl, and we won't have an opinion and all of these things so that we can fit in and be accepted by others. So for me, I really feel like it's a society thing. And just feeling that need to be accepted in a world because we don't want to be seen as different, or we don't want to be seen as the outsider.
I watched a TikTok a couple weeks ago, and it touched on this, and it was a really good perspective. We know that thousands of years ago we came from tribes and community and doing everything together, and then it kind of zoomed into where we are now, and everyone's trying to break free of that mold. But because it's so rooted in our DNA, it still feels so weird. It still feels so icky and like we're doing something taboo. And it was a great way to look at it, is that for anyone listening, it's quite literally embedded into our DNA. It's quite literally, as human beings, we were created from being in tribes, from being in communities. So yes, to a degree, it is normal to want to be accepted. But I also think, I love what you said. It's the aim of the game is really come back to yourself, come home to yourself, trust yourself. Where is the safe space within yourself? And what are the things that you have to give up along the way? And I want to ask you that too, Vanessa, is what did you have to give up? Whether it's a tangible thing, whether it's a certain belief you held on for years, what are the things you actually gave up to get to where you are now?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things for me was a belief around not being worthy and not being good enough. I really had to let go of those beliefs because for so long I felt that I wasn't worthy of a life that I desired. I wasn't worthy of being somebody that I really desired to be. I feel we always have those feelings that we know that we want to be more and that we're here for more, and we've got desires on our hearts, but a lot of the time we won't go after them because we feel fearful, or we don't trust ourselves enough, or we feel that we're unworthy of them. So I really had to let go of those beliefs around not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. Firstly, because they were really big things that were holding me back from stepping into my truth. And then the other thing was actually just being okay with not being liked by everybody. And this is a huge thing, and I actually really, through my journey of personal development and my own, like working on myself, really learning about we're not supposed to be for everybody. And that was a huge thing for me, because I think when you're going through school and, your teenage years, it's all about your friends, and it's all about, fitting in and being invited to all the parties, and you just want to be involved. And of course, like, we're not taught that it's okay not to be liked by everybody from a young age. We're not taught that. And we hold on to friendships thinking that we need to be a part of these because they're everything to us. That's what we feel like when we're at school and when we're in our teenage years. And I see this with my daughter now. She's 10, and obviously there's conflict at school and things like that. And for her, it's like her friendships are her life right now. And that's how it's viewed. These are kind of the only things that we really have to think about when we're that young. And so really learning that it's okay not to be liked by everybody, and that your people will find you, and that you are right for your people. And so I really had to let go of that. And that was a huge thing for me, because I was 100% a people pleaser. And that was because, again, I wanted to be liked, I wanted to fit in, and I'd lost my identity. So I didn't have, my own opinion, my own voice. So I just people pleased to fit in, went with the flow, like did everything that everybody else did. And so that was a huge one for me, was realizing that it's okay not to be liked by everybody, and that my people will find me. And the more authentic that I am in that, the more authentically aligned friendships and connections that I'm going to make by being who I truly am.
What is authenticity to you? I think in the personal development world, especially over the past couple of years, it's used in different aspects. I definitely use it, but I would love to hear what it actually means to you to be your authentic self. How did you find that authenticity in getting really rooted in your values, in your beliefs, and in your teachings?
Yeah. Authenticity for me, my interpretation of it is actually just being who you truly are and who you came here to be. And so that gets to be, showing up as your true self, owning your voice. So having an opinion, speaking up, being who you truly are, owning your power and owning your gifts, because a lot of the work that I do as well, it ties into manifestation. And so I really love, as I mentioned before, conscious identity work around connecting with our higher self and our intuition. And I truly believe that we were all born here for a reason. We've all got a set of unique gifts as to why we are here. And so being your authentic self to me is also owning those true gifts as to why you are here, which is why I also work with women coming back into connecting with their purpose, which ultimately takes them on their path of alignment. So yeah, for me, those are the those are the things that authenticity means to me. But as an overall, it is just about being true to you and who you are. And again, like you mentioned, values, beliefs, all of those things that just, yeah, your whole personality shining through, but in its truth.
How do you weave manifestation into what you do?
I work a lot around intention and desires. And I think that's the part that I really love, because my Reignited Women program that I'm doing right now is we really focus on the identity work, but also bringing in the desires and the intentions, because I actually started out doing purpose work originally because I'd lost my purpose and through my career. And that really what led me into this around how, we've really got these desires that we're born with on our heart that we actually get to have. But for me, for so long, I felt like I couldn't have them because I said before around the worthiness piece, or you just feel like you see other people have that life and you automatically think, oh, well, I can't have that because she's that. When we go into that judging and we're like, well, she's only got that because she's that. And I really wanted to bring in this, awareness around we actually do get to have what it is that we desire, and really we do have access to every single one of our timelines. And so I really wanted to bring that work into, that world of desires, intentions, and getting to have what it is that we want into my work, and really allowing women to connect with their desires and really allowing that to be their lead for where it is that they want to go, and just raising a new awareness to we actually do get to have it all. And I don't want women to feel limited by feeling that they can't have what they want, because they absolutely can.
Let's go back to the timeline comment you made. I know exactly what you mean, but for everyone that is listening and was like, wait, what do you mean by timelines? Can you please explain that in terms of manifestation?
Yeah. So ultimately, we've all got these, I suppose you can call them pathways, which might be a better way for people to understand. So we've got all these different paths within ourselves that are available to us. And when we are working with manifestation and when we are working with the universe and our intuition is our higher self. So ultimately, when we can connect deeply into that part of us, that is our ultimate guidance for where it is that we are being led to. We're going to be led to our highest path of alignment, our highest timeline. And so when we actually more connected to our intuition, to our higher self, that is how we're going to be able to be led to the truth of where it is that we're going to go. And so ultimately, we have all these pathways within us. So if you have a desire that's on your heart, to maybe it's that you want to manifest $10,000, for example, you have that's already available to you within your timeline, within your pathway. But it's actually just being able to follow the intuitive pull, the intuitive nudge, your higher self's guidance, to allow for you to be led down that pathway to create that manifestation of that $10,000.
Someone is listening and they think, okay, that's all well and good, but how do I get those intuitive downloads? Where do I even start with that? How do I know that that's what I want? Or how do I know that maybe this pathway is the one for me and I haven't just picked it up from someone on social media and run with it?
And this is why, going back to where I was talking about doing a lot of work with self-connection, connecting into your body, because for me, that's been the most biggest thing. And meditation is really amazing for this as well. And just sitting in stillness, like not talking, just allowing to be with yourself, is how we actually get our inner guidance to come through. And, we can even go deeper with this. And I see you did a post on this today. We can talk about connecting with our sex, and having sex and our pleasure portal, and activating all of those parts of us is where it opens up our inner guidance, and we can hear that clearly. So what I really teach my clients is getting out of our head, getting out of our minds and back into our bodies, because our thoughts are not real. Our thoughts are just what we currently believe. And so obviously our ego is always leading us, but we want to get back into our body, connecting back with our intuition. And when we can hear that come through moments of stillness, through moments of connection, that's the part of ourselves that we can know is true. And normally if it's something as well that can feel edgy, that can feel a bit like, oh, I've got this intuitive download to do this thing, but it actually scares me. Like normally you can trust and know that that's right. And that's why you have that thought and that feeling, and to lead with that. And of course it is hard to do that. And I've had to really get good at doing this, because particularly in business, I have a lot of intuitive downloads, and some of them are really, really scary. And I'm sure you can relate to this. And I am like, no, I need to follow what I'm being led to, because I know that that is going to give me the result that I desire. So it's really been a place of just choosing that over the fear. And if the fear creeps in, just choosing myself over time, knowing that I get to trust what our intuition is guiding us to, know that, the universe always wants us to win. And so we're never going to be without, and we're never going to, lose what it is that we desire. We're always going to be led down the pathway, even if it might not always feel that is happening for us, but it always will in the long run.
I love that you brought up that post, because that was actually an intuitive download. I was sitting here after another podcast interview and I was like, all right, I'm in a working mode now. I'm going to be on my laptop. I'll create some reels. I'll do a post. I haven't done a carousel post in a few weeks. And I started with something else. I started writing. And when it comes to content creation for me, I have definitely learned after a long period of time, anytime I force it, it's going to be shit. It's going to have shit energy behind it. It's not going to be well received. It's not even about the vanity metrics. It's not going to feel good when I look at it. And I started to feel like it was getting a bit forced. And then all of a sudden, the download of the entire post just came into my mind. I have my notepad right here. I had to write it down. And so one of my points was about intuitive downloads. And it's something that I often say to my clients is like, those things that are popping into you, you've created space somehow in the silence to be able to receive those. So I love that you brought it up, and being able to trust that over your fear. And I think, and I say this to my clients as well, and I know that you would agree, every single time that I have trusted and followed my intuition, it has never failed me. And there has been many times, especially in business, where I'm on the edge of my seat and I'm like, why does my intuition want this so badly? This is scary as fuck right now. I cannot believe I'm about to do this. And then it never fails me. It may never happen in the timeline that I expect, but it works out in the way that it's meant to. And so I think that's such a great thing to highlight, is we need to really get quiet. And I said this to my one-on-one actually on Tuesday, sorry, after I call. She's going through a big identity shift herself. And I said, I just want you to just stop and get quiet, do nothing. And we live in such a chaotic go, 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 go world that it's kind of like, what do you mean stop? What do you mean do nothing? Give me something tangible. Give me something to action. And I'm like, no, right now I just go away whenever you get a chance to do that, and then come back. Let's talk about some strategy. Let's talk about some action. But the action I want you to take is be still, be silent. And why do you think that we struggle so much with just getting quiet with ourselves and going within?
I think a lot of it is just, it's autopilot, we're 99% on autopilot all the time. And so that's just how we've been conditioned to just go, go, go all the time. And so it's really hard to just think we're going to sit down and be with ourselves. And again, there's a piece in that where it's probably not normalized enough as well. So we don't see that that's a thing that people are doing, to know that we should be doing that. So it's probably a bit of education around that too, which is why it's so powerful, the work that we're doing, that we get to educate people into the power of actually, being with yourself and creating stillness. But I believe it is just that we feel like we just need to be on the go all the time. And we're just so consumed by everything that we need to do, our tasks, our priorities, our day-to-day things, that we are just kind of need to be in this sense of accomplishment all the time, rather than actually realizing that being with ourselves is actually how we get to feel accomplished. And I think it's a really powerful awareness piece, having this conversation now, but allowing people to see the power of actually being with yourself and what you actually can create from that place. But it's definitely a conversation that's not had enough, I don't feel. And I think that's why it's quite hard for people to understand the power of doing that, or really just connecting the dots to why it should be a priority for them.
I agree. I think it's a conversation that isn't had enough. I don't think it's normalized enough, especially if we bring it to the online space, online business owners. And I'm sure you've noticed in the past couple of years, the industry and the go and the chaoticness, and there's been a bit of disconnection. I've definitely noticed that after the past 5 years in business. But I slowly believe, and I've been having this conversation with business owners, we're coming into this period of just wanting to slow down and connect more and to see things more and to feel things more. And I think that it's slowly but surely getting more normalized to have conversations like this and know that, yes, you can still be disciplined, you can still have focus, but you can equally just stop and breathe and feel into what you need and stop consuming and stop thinking that there always has to be a next new thing. Someone said to me the other week that they are getting in a habit of during the day just celebrating themselves more, not just in a week or a month, but in the day, and just stopping no matter what has happened, celebrate. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing because that's definitely one of my aims this year, to celebrate myself more. And I thought that's so beautiful. You bringing that into a daily practice, and that really just allows you to stop, because I agree, it's this sense of accomplishment. We always need to accomplish something. We always need to show, look, I'm working so hard, or even if it, not even to other people, but to ourselves. Do you find that you have maybe struggled with that too? Like, you need to prove to yourself that you can do this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially being in the corporate world, because
Mm.
it's so, it's so fast paced, and you also feel like you're just competing with everybody all the time. And it's a very, masculine dominated, you know area and environment, so you constantly are on the go, and you're constantly having to produce pieces of work, and you just have that mindset around, once I've accomplished something, is actually giving someone to something and saying, I've done this for you. That was my connection to that, having been in the corporate world, was putting briefs together for council, because I was working in the legal industry and things like that. So it was actually having the evidence for me to see that I'd done that work. I could tick it off my to-do list, and that was my accomplishment, rather than it actually being around, like, yeah, we said, being connected to you, and actually feeling accomplished by just actually being connected with yourself, which, yeah, being for so long was so far away for me.
What can you say to both? I want two sets of advice, one to the
Mm.
corporate women, one
Mm.
to the online business women. How can you set more boundaries to come back to yourself in either aspect?
Yeah. So first, with corporate, I would definitely say that, and this is going to speak from my own personal experience to how I felt, was actually just allowing yourself to feel confident in speaking up if something doesn't feel right. Or if you feel that you're being undervalued, you feel like you're not being treated fairly. That is the one thing that I would say, is actually just coming back to yourself and being like, I'm going to speak up here, something doesn't feel right. So actually speaking what it is that you feel and what you want to say, 100%. And I think also just realizing that we can't get everything done. And as much as it can feel hard that we're in a pressing environment and everything feels urgent, but I highly recommend, again, communication is so key in the corporate industry. And I really found that if you communicate back and say, what is a priority right now? What can maybe be done tomorrow? What can be done later? And actually just allowing yourself to, yeah, again, like, it is about just having a voice and setting those boundaries for yourself around, I'm not going to be walked all over. I need to just set boundaries here that are going to make me feel that my nervous system isn't out of whack. It's going to feel nice and safe, and that I'm going to be able to still feel myself and not feel overwhelmed and not feel like I'm going to have a panic attack because it's all too much. So I would definitely give advice around communicating what it is that you need and communicating back on workload, so that you can get an idea of how things can work and fit in with yourself, so that you're not over exhausting yourself and pushing yourself
Mm.
too hard. Yeah.
When it comes to the online business space, I'd love from your perspective, just because you do have two kids, you run an
Mm.
online business, you have
Yeah.
a partnership. How do you find that balance? And I'm putting that in quotation marks.
Yes, it is hard. I'm not going to lie. It's been a challenge. And I think it's definitely got easier. At the start, it was very difficult. And I think, again, what I was just talking on around communication is actually really powerful in this, because it was about me communicating to my partner and to my children what I was doing. And because I was new to this and I was kind of trying to juggle again all the hats, I found that I was just overexhausting myself a little bit there too, because I was kind of just trying to be all in at all different areas and give to everybody. So communicating was a really big thing for me, and saying, you know, I just need an hour right now to do this, and really just coming into a place of just looking at where I was needed and prioritizing myself in that, but where I needed to be with my kids and how I can be in my business. And it was really powerful for just coming into that awareness piece around communicating what I was doing, where I was, what I needed right now, but also communicating with my husband to share the load with the children, to share the family stuff too. And that was a big thing for me. As I said at the start, I used to be someone that would just not ask for help and would continuously feel like I needed to do it all. So that's been a really big thing, is just coming into saying, hey, can I get some help here? I've just got to finish something, or, you know, I've got to record a training. I've got a call tonight with a client. And just really leaning in for a bit more support has been a big thing for me as well.
I love that you highlight asking for support. That's one thing I've had to learn as well. And in my current relationship, we've been together nearly 3 years, and I only think it's the last year where I'm like, oh, it's okay to ask for support. Like, it's a safe, like, I don't have to do everything alone. Like, I can still be an independent woman in my business, but in my relationship, I can be in my feminine and get support.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that. And I've loved this entire conversation. You've brought so many juicy nuggets to the entire world of identity and mindset and manifestation. And at the end of my podcast episodes with guests, I like to choose from a bunch of questions that I have. I choose one question. They're very random, most of the time, nothing to do with anything we've spoken about. So I'm just
Well,
looking over. So get prepared for a
oh
random
my
question.
God.
I'm just looking over and I'm like, what do I want to ask Vanessa that I maybe haven't asked anyone yet? Um, okay, this is a good one. If you could trade lives with someone for a week living entirely in their shoes, who would you choose, and what do you think you'd learn from that experience?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Oh, who would I choose? You know
Dead
who
or
the
alive? I'll say that.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Well, I could go down the music route and that would be some people that are dead. But you know who first come into my mind when you
Mm,
said Kim Kardashian? And I'm just going
mm,
to run with that because, you know, intuitive, yep, she was
yep.
there. And I think because I'm in business, I
Yeah.
think it would be really powerful for me to go in and in her shoes and just learn from her around how, you know, she's created
Mhm.
so much success in business and being, you know, a public figure and all of those things and holding it all together. But really also just learning her mindset and her strategies around so many things would be amazing to actually know. And yeah, be a bit of a fly on the wall too. So I think for me, just coming into my own place of business and being a personal brand as well, because that's, you know, what
Mm.
ties into it and with our work. So I think that would be really cool to trade places with her. And I think it would be a really huge eye opener and a lot of learning in that place.
100% Kim Kardashian or Kris Jenner. Doesn't matter what anyone says or thinks about the Kardashians. They know how to run businesses. They know how to run personal brands. I also find it
Yeah.
fascinating. I love that answer. Thank you, Vanessa. Where can everyone find you, work with you? What do you have going on right now?
Mhm. Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at vanessahabgood.co. I am mainly on Instagram, and on there I've got some links to my website, which you can follow to read a bit more about me. I've currently got Reignited Woman is my 3-month mastermind. So if you want to dive deep into all things around identity, connecting back with you, mindset, alignment work, purpose work, that is going to be happening again in a couple of months' time. I'm just running the current round now, and the next round's due to start in May, June. So if you'd love some information on that and would like to be added to the pre-sale waitlist, you can DM me on Instagram and find me over there. Otherwise, I also do, have a podcast, Woman Unleashed. So you can find that on Spotify and listen to some episodes on there too.
Amazing. And all of that will be in the show notes below. Go follow Vanessa. She shares some juicy things on her story and her posts as well. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This has been an incredible episode.
Thank you so much, my love. It's been amazing.